Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18 plus.
If you really like this episode, please support our podcast by going to patreon.com/truecrimewives and get lots of great extras. On the Good Wife's Guide to True Crime, we discuss crimes that some may find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised. I know I usually have a lot to say, but for the next two episodes, I don't think I have anything more to say than what I've already said while discussing them inside the episode with Colleen and Christina. The only thing I can say about all of this is that it sure is not what any of us started out to do. And it's been a really bumpy road. And whether or not the series gets made at this point, I have to be happy with where we're at right now. I'm not even sure I want the series to be made at this point, because it's certainly not what I set out to do. We've thought about doing other cases that involve Munchausen by proxy, and we probably will. And I think that maybe one of those might actually become the series that we wanted to do, because we wanted to make something that, anytime you deal with true crime, there's going to be darkness. But the drama and the darkness that surrounded this case specifically, it's not what we want to put out there for the public to see as a representation of trying to bring light to Munchausen by proxy, prison reform, child abuse, and any of the other things that we really wanted to make light of. So this podcast, basically, it's an ending of a chapter for all of us. And we hope to move on to better things with less drama and more hope for really trying to bring a freshness to true crime and an understanding of the people that commit these crimes and why these things happen, and bring some light to topics that really just don't always get discussed. So thank you for listening for the past 12 episodes. You've got this one and one more, and then I'm happy to say we say goodbye to Gypsy Rose Blanchard. Hey folks, it's time to grab your glass of wine because the Good Wives, Fancy, Colleen, and Christina, are about to serve up another true crime case. talks about in his Oxygen special that just came out, Killer Couples, about the best days of his life being those 5 days that he actually got to spend with Gypsy physically after the murder. And I think that's kind of an odd thing for him to say. Like, out of all of his life, those 5 days were the best days of his life after killing somebody.
Well, I guess he's with his one true love, and he's still feels that way, that he and Gypsy will always be together. I don't know if those feelings are reciprocated.
Absolutely
not. It's a little bit romantic, except for the murder.
Yeah, darn that damn murder. I mean, if not for that, it'd be the perfect love story, right?
The perfect fairy tale.
The perfect fairy tale. And they were going to have their wedding in the snow. Oh,
except for it's June.
Red roses.
Yes, except for it's June. And I don't think Mr. Godejohn was going to wait, 6 months to make that all happen.
So they spent these 4 days in Wisconsin after they took the bus, the Greyhound, all the way up to Wisconsin, which is where I am. And they stayed at Nick's mom's house, where his mom pretty much said that they had sex like bunnies.
Yeah. She also kept saying that she didn't know that Gypsy was going to stay for a long time, which I don't know, because the way that Nick presents it, it seems like he had told his mom that, but I don't know. Maybe she just thought, okay, well, she'll come and then they'll move out and I'll be done with him and her and all in one bundle. I get rid of this whole mess. I don't know. I just kind of feel like that's the way his mom is. Like, I don't feel like she wanted to really deal with Nick,
I don't think she did either. She tolerated, essentially. He lived there, did his own thing, stayed up in his room most of the time.
Yeah, right.
A very different home life. Yeah. Both Gypsy and Nick had very different home lives, but also were a little bit the same in that I think they felt very alone together.
Yes.
And isolated.
Mm-hmm. Neither one of them had a lot of social interactions with anyone. So, and in this time period, they don't ever think to get rid of this fucking knife or the phones. Like, neither thing do they do, which are both the things that pretty much, was the evidence used against them.
Right. I don't know how they didn't get the knife.
One of the reasons that made me start to believe that Gypsy was laying out those breadcrumbs is because of 4 days. The knife should have been the first thing you got rid of. And here we are 4 days later having sex like bunnies, hanging out, and the knife is still there with you.
Right.
So
she's talking about going and meeting his friends and things like that, but yet, she's talking to Allie and the other ones and hanging out, but yet, nope, we didn't think about getting rid of this knife. And I really think that maybe it didn't start out that way. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe they, whatever. But I definitely, in those 4 days, I would think you would just get rid of it. Like, it's Wisconsin. There's lakes.
Yep,
right?
There's a lot of lakes in where he lived. A lot of lakes, a lot of land. Go bury it in one of the fields.
Throw it in a trash bin.
Anything. The cell phones too. Delete.
Do anything with them, the knife and the phones, anything but keep them in the house with you where you're supposed to be now living and living out, your happily ever after.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about the phones. The phones really bother me. Like, did she just think that they wouldn't find the phones? Did they think that they could erase the phones?
Right, and I think Nick's may have been like a phone probably on like US Cellular or something, but Gypsy's was a track phone.
Right.
Like, easily delete all the messages, destroy the SIM card, done.
Phone away. Yeah. Like, I mean,
But
go
she
buy
knew
another $20 fucking flip phone for Christ's sake.
Yeah, because she knew enough. And in the text messages, she does talk about destroying her computer. And they have that whole argument about their memories being on that computer and her destroying it. So she knew enough to think to destroy her computer. But what about the phones?
There's so much evidence there.
So much evidence there. You know, I mean, those text messages were law enforcement gold, man. I really think that if they didn't have those and they didn't, even the knife, if they had found the knife, whatever, but if they hadn't had those text messages, I'm not quite sure that Gypsy would have got charged.
I agree.
Right. The only reason that they would have charged her, and it would have been much lesser charge, more of a conspiracy to commit murder, was her interrogation video. Which we'll get into that.
Yeah, but that would have gone differently. But I mean, the interrogation video would have gone differently.
Yeah, because they had the messages at some point. They got them.
Right. Because it would have been his word against hers, and obviously she was a much more credible witness in their eyes.
Yeah. I mean, Nick screwed himself over with his messages, and not only just his messages to Gypsy, but his messages to his friends, his Facebook messages. Like, 2 years prior to the murder, he tells Allie, I'm going to kill her mom.
Well, and I guess that might have been another thing, too. They wouldn't have been able to get rid of the Facebook messages.
Yeah.
Even without the text messages, eventually it probably would have come out no matter what. Because those Facebook messages, I mean, they can't get rid of those. Facebook will provide them with a warrant, So I guess even with that, because they did have conversations in so many different ways that I guess no matter what, she would have been kind of in the hot seat,
But I wonder if that's the reason why she thought destroying the computer was a good idea. Maybe she thought that if she destroyed the computer, they would never be able to see what was said on Facebook, on the dating sites, on any other thing. And she thought she was wiping out everything, not realizing that they can still get access to everything that was said.
Well, yeah, I guess, because I'm not really sure. I know when you deactivate account, like, regular people can't see it. We've been through that with people that follow this case. But I'm not quite sure if it erases it from Facebook completely. Like, Facebook would probably still have a record of it, I would think. I don't,
Right, unless they, deleted the account 30 days or whatever before everything happened, and then the account really is deleted. Because I don't think Zuckerberg allows the FBI and stuff to get those messages after that. I know. I remember reading an article maybe last year because there was a murder that had happened, and they wanted to get into the Facebook messages and then the messages on his Apple messages. And Apple and Zuckerberg were like, nope, sorry, no. And it was like, why? Why aren't you allowing that? And it's like, well, this is our company. It's no. It was a big old to-do.
So, I mean, after these 5 days that they don't get rid of this knife, they've traveled all across the country. Never once did they think, hey, maybe I should get off the bus and throw this out. Maybe I should throw it in a lake. Maybe I should leave it behind a Walmart. I don't freaking know. They're arrested. They're tracked down through that horrible Facebook message, and Aaliyah helping by telling them, that she had been having a relationship with a guy. Aaliyah the bully who doesn't care about Gypsy, according to Gypsy.
that was astonishing to me.
Yeah.
That was, boy, man. Anyway, so they get arrested and there's a standoff. Like,
come out with your hands up.
Yeah, and he doesn't want to, so they have to go in and they have to get him. And his mom and stepdad were so weird about that whole situation. Like, she's like, they dragged him out. And well, yeah, of course. What? Yeah, that's what happens.
He killed somebody.
They killed somebody. Like, that's what happens. You know.
But so right after, they get them, because of what they knew about Gypsy prior to finding them, they have to take her to the hospital. Though they were quite surprised that she's just walking around.
Yeah. They were very surprised. They were expecting to find her in a wheelchair. Obviously, she was not in a wheelchair, nor was she using the assistance of a cane or a walker.
Or glasses.
Right.
She was just fine. So they took her to the hospital, the nearest hospital that we believe that she went to, and I'm quite sure it was, because the nearest in that county is Waukesha. Mm-hmm. And they did a medical clearance, so they kind of just ran basic tests, did like a CT scan, just to make sure she was like okay. Mm-hmm. And she was just fine.
Right, everything comes back normal.
Yeah, so what a surprise.
And this time people actually believe that.
They're like, wow, she's fine.
She's fine.
I think it was Nick's stepfather who said it best. Like, the only thing about her that I noticed was that, like, she was wearing this weird wig. Like, other than that, she was just regular.
Right. Yeah, they're like, did she show any signs of struggling to walk? Nope. No. They're like, was she having a trouble eating? No. She ate just fine.
Nope, some pizza.
Nope.
Had some soda. And at some point between getting arrested and the trial, they take her feeding tube out because she doesn't need it.
Right.
And those holes, I've had feeding tubes. You can find me on my Facebook and see my feeding tubes if you like. Those holes close up very quickly.
Yeah.
Even if they've been there for a long time, it's just like piercing when you get your ear pierced and you take that earring out. Mm-hmm. It's the same tissue. And so, yeah, same tissue. So usually they'll put like a colostomy bag over it just in case there's any drainage. Mm-hmm. But usually within like 2 to 7 days, the hole closes up on the outside. It'll take longer for the inside to close, mm-hmm. but the outside will be closed. And there's a little scar. I'm actually planning to get a tattoo where mm-hmm. my scar is. So even though it's going to be a button, even though I had a dangling tube, mm-hmm. and I'm not going to get like a piercing of a dangling feeding tube. But just kind of, it's very symbolic for me. The struggles that I overcame and how it helped me become the person that I am today.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18 plus.
Improving just how strong I am.
I like that idea. That's really cool, Colleen. Kind of like my survivor tattoo of my semicolon, you know, incorporated Disney into it. I have the Mad Hatter's top hat as the top of the semicolon, and then the Cheshire Cat as the bottom of the semicolon, and then above it it says "We're all mad here," you know. And
That's
I did
cool.
the same thing. Like that was a warrior kind of thing, like, you know, owning it and taking control of that situation. So I kind of like what you're doing too. That's really cool. So they took out her feeding tube, and comes back with her medical evaluation is all fine, and then she ends up in the back at the police station, where for 2 hours she proceeds to become a experienced travel agent, apparently. You know, she takes a nap, she eats her food, she talks about how great the sandwich was, and that interrogation video, as we've talked about, is something I asked for 2 years, and when I got it, it finally like solidified for me that nothing was what I had thought it was either. Our team had a really hard time with that and coming to terms with it, because it really puts into perspective what this whole case is, and it's really about a boy.
And it's a long video. I mean, take it in chunks, but it is available to watch on our YouTube channel at
youtube.com/murderbydesign. And we've got her whole interrogation video. We have his whole, I think it's like 16 hours that he sits there. And many times, a lot of that is him just sitting and mumbling to himself. And some of the mumblings are interesting. You can hear him have the inner monologues and conversations between him and whatever is going on in his brain. And some of that I think is fake, and some of it I just think is he's just kind of talking it out with himself so that he knows what he's going to say when they actually come in. Very different, two very different looks at things. He is he's nervous. He goes over it in his head so you can tell that he's trying to get his story straight. That he's trying to make sure that he says all the things that they had discussed that he was going to say. But then she's cool, calm, and collected. Takes a nap, eats some food, gives travel advice, talks about Harry Potter. I mean, it's just very vastly different, the two things.
It's just shocking that when she just starts saying, like, what? My mom is dead?
Yeah, I mean,
I remember the day that we got that video, and I remember stopping everything I was doing to sit and watch it. And when I was done, I was so angry. Throughout the video, I'm sitting there like, okay, Gypsy, tell him about the wheelchair. Tell him about the surgery. Tell him about all the doctor's visits. And at one point, I just wanted to scream at my computer screen, like, what the fuck are you doing? Why aren't you telling them any of this stuff? And by the time it was done, my entire view of who Gypsy was had changed. I mean, 180 degrees. It was just, I don't think I'll ever, during this entire case that we worked on, that's the moment that I think will always stick with me.
Yeah.
How that just changed everything for me, those few hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, yeah, that's part of it. Like, I watched it all in one shot. You know, I sat and watched the whole 4 hours. And the first 2 hours, I was just like, okay, I mean, she's rather calm. I'm surprised she hasn't asked for her mom. I'm surprised that she hasn't, if she's really going along with this whole thing of I don't know, then those would have been things that she would have done. You know, so she was just so calm about it. Just do. You know, and that was really upsetting to me at first. I was like, what is she doing? Like, okay. And then when he came in and she began her whole, you know, I don't know what's going on. I don't know why you're here. I don't know why I'm here. it just didn't add up to what she had already been doing, you know? And that was a really hard one for me too. Like you said, to stomach, like I'll never forget the feelings I had. Like I just kept waiting for something to happen. That when is she going to tell the truth? When is she going to talk about her mom? When is she going to say I've been abused? When? Never?
When?
Oh, okay. That's interesting. And it just was like, that for me was really hard. And the only other thing, like the main thing that I remember was, two other things in this case was, you know, originally the very first time I spoke with her, and the first time I spoke with her on the phone, she was really cheerful and she was very animated and her voice was really high and she was like super excited and really kind. And as time went on, that voice didn't go as high and she wasn't excited and she wasn't as nice as she'd been in the beginning. It became very clear that that was the act that she puts on, you know, and her voice is not as high as she makes it when she's trying to convince people of things. It's not low, but it's not high. It's not as high as she makes it. And the other thing for me is like the medical records. When we started getting those pouring in, those medical records were just polarizing. So those were the three moments for me that I'll just never forget. Like, you know, the interrogation video, after wanting it for so long and expecting to see something that I really had thought was going to happen. And I'd asked about it. I'd even asked Gypsy about, like, when did you confess? When did you? And she never answered me. And I guess that I should have been like a red flag for me, but I just thought she didn't want to talk about it. You know, like, I just kind of felt like maybe it was hard for her or she didn't really remember because of emotions. Nope. She was too calm, collected for that.
Yeah, she knew.
Yeah.
She knew what was happening. She just wanted to pretend like it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, she could have said to me at any point in time, look, I never confessed. You know, and that would have been something that we would have dealt with, and it would have been a lot easier for us to take. And I think our team would have reacted differently if we had known that earlier on. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
We would have been prepared.
Right. It was just like a punch to the gut.
Especially
Like,
after so long, like defending her on social media and talking about it and saying, well, nobody knows because nobody's seen it. And then seeing it and going, oh, okay.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go anywhere. The Good Wives will be right back. In every episode, since we're the Good Wives, we won't just be dishing true crime. We also want to serve up one of our favorite recipes. So here's the Cajun Mama Thai with this week's Tasty Delight.
Did you kill your mom?
No, sir.
Did you help
No, sir.
Nicholas kill your mom?
No, sir. No, sir.
Did you have knowledge that Nicholas was going to kill your mom before he did it?
No, sir.
Well, now we're at the point that they were arrested. They were interrogated. Both of them did not ask for a lawyer at the right time. And Nick he's a very simple man where he's like, well, I killed her mom, but she asked me to. Well, she said she was being abused and I wanted to help her. So he's just straight up confessing. He does a couple lies in there, but he's pretty honest about most things.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Gypsy spends 20 hours just lying about many, many different things and blowing things off. And then once they tell her that they have the proof, she says, I want a lawyer. So she knew to ask for a lawyer. didn't think they had enough proof to catch her.
I think that was pretty telling for me. That was like, oh, well, I thought she was kind of like, naive and whatever. Nope, no. She thought she had it in the bag, man.
But I sunk that dude. I planted that evidence in his house. I got them to come to the house and arrest him. Yeah. I'm going to live free and happy. And when can I go home now?
Right.
No, you're not going home now. So she has
realized that she called for a lawyer.
And her lawyer, pretty damn awesome.
Yeah, he was really good especially for like a public defender. Like, she got lucky. She got real lucky on who she got. Mike Stanfield was an excellent lawyer. Ended up convincing them of this with very limited amount of documents. Let me tell you, okay? The amount of documents that Mike had compared to the amount of medical documents that we have, astronomically different. His were very superficial things. They were not in depth, but he basically took the fact that, look, she's been in this wheelchair. She's been in this wheelchair since she was 7. She has been put through medical shit, and that was abuse, and that's why she killed her mom. And he made this amazing defense. And basically, I know the prosecutor took that on the fact of, well, shit. It could go either way for me, so I'm just going to give her this plea deal. She gets a honey of a plea deal, 10 freaking years for planning your mom's murder for 2 years, hiring basically the guy to do it, covering it up, leaving the crime scene, and basically doing everything but actually stabbing your mom yourself. 10 years.
Yeah, because if she didn't take a plea deal, if she went to trial, she is a very sympathetic witness.
Yeah.
She knows how to put on a show.
She does.
Watch all her videos.
Yeah.
She can put on a show. She will sit in that wheelchair and wheel herself up there even though she can walk. And she will use her high-pitched voice while hugging a stuffed animal. And
while hugging a stuffed animal. I love that.
She's going to put on that show and make, most juries, they try to do like half and half, male, female, but there's usually a little bit more females than men. And all of them are going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe her mom did this to her. Not guilty. And then you can't retry that.
Well, I even think that men would have been even more sympathetic, like, because guys have the need to like take care of this poor little girl. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that poor thing. Women, I think, would be more apt to question and maybe possibly, she would have been found guilty with women. I think men would have literally just been like, oh, that's awful. And
yeah, I think I disagree with you guys here. I think if this would have went to trial, I think Gypsy would have got the maximum amount of time that they could have given her.
No, I really think that could have happened with all the evidence because they would have had to see all the evidence.
Yeah.
With what Mike had originally. What'd you say?
If Gypsy took the stand, I think that would have been like a slam dunk because as young and innocent as she sounds, I think once she told her story with Nick involved, I think people would have seen it for what it was, for the most part.
If they had her read her text messages, that would have been
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's just depending on the cross-examination, how Mike would have handled that situation.
I think what they had in the beginning with that, then yes, I actually think she could have got off with what they had in just the beginning. It could have gone the other way, like you said, with the text messages. I think that once all the information came in that we've seen, I don't think she would have got off. I agree. I think that was a brilliant move on Mike's part. I do. I really do. It was a gamble. Definitely a 50-50 gamble.
Yeah, it paid off.
Yeah.
10 years?
Yeah, that's, and she'll be eligible for parole. It's
Yeah, at 8. So 2024, she's up for parole. We've had many discussions about this. Like Titania was like, she wanted to go and she wanted to make sure that she talked and basically make sure that Gypsy has to do the full, 10 years. But then I originally, my thought process on the whole petition that her father started, which by the way, he's never taken, which I think is interesting to say the least. You've got this petition for 5 years almost now, and you've never taken it where you said you were going to take it, which that petition is bullshit anyway. It's not going to work. But the fact that he's never even attempted to try really is telling to me. But I originally was like, this isn't doing her any good. She's not going to learn anything in prison, but how to be a better prisoner, how to be a better con, but now I'm at a point where I said, no, Titania, we don't want her. We don't want to go lobby for her to take the whole bid. We want to lobby for her to actually get the parole at 2024, but the condition would be that she has to end up in a full-time treatment facility for the rest of the 2 years. Because I think that's the only way we're going to see any type of normalcy for her, which I don't think there's going to be, but that would be the Hail Mary saving grace.
Right. She can't go home right after prison, because then there's going to be, she has no lesson right now. And we're going to talk about that in the next episode, which you guys will very much enjoy.
Yeah, I think the last episode's going to be a really great one for us here. So, and here's the thing, like, there is a big difference in support here from Gypsy's family, and they supported her through this. They helped her realize that taking a deal was the best idea instead of gambling and trying to get off. Like, they were very pragmatic about it. I think, they were, I can say this one thing, they were very supportive through this process. At least getting her to the plea deal and into prison and everything. Now, after that, it fell off again because they should be lobbying for her to be in some sort of treatment, but they're really doing nothing. But they made sure that she, got a 10-year deal, whereas Nick's parents, nothing.
Yeah, no.
His mom never showed up again after she left that station, and his dad is a very misguided person. So.
He thinks he should just be free, and
right, and it's the why Nick didn't take his deal, But we're going to talk about that in the next section here. But I wanted to read. So Mike took some of these things, and where a lot of Mike got some of his information and things, he gets it from these letters that the Petrie family writes to him about things that happened when Gypsy was young and about their sister and stuff. So I wanted to take some time to read these letters for you guys, and they will be in our Patreon account. But they're interesting. So the first one is from.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
So we have some of the letters from the Petries. My favorite one is the one from Dorla. So basically, these are letters that they wrote to Mike, telling him about different things they remembered about Gypsy and Dee Dee. So this is Dorla. Dorla is the closest sister in age to Dee Dee. So it said, my name is Dorla Petrie. I am one of Dee Dee's sisters. I only have a couple of times I can recall due to the fact that I lived in Mississippi during the time her and T-Rod got married. even started dating, had Gypsy, got divorced, etc. On one event, I came down the bayou to visit with my parents, and my daughters were playing outside. Then Dee Dee came to visit with Gypsy. She was in a wheelchair. Dee Dee went to the store and left Gypsy with us. As soon as her mother was out of sight, Gypsy got out of the wheelchair and went and jumped on the trampoline with my girl. The minute she saw her mother coming back, she dropped like a rag doll, like she couldn't move her legs anymore. Dee Dee got out of the car and came over to the trampoline and yelled at Gypsy, pulled her off, and put her back in her wheelchair. They got in the car and left before we could ask any questions. Years later, me and my sister went on vacation, and Dee Dee and Gypsy surprised us and came visit us in the hotel room. We went walk on the beach, and my sister carried Gypsy on her back for a piggyback ride because Dee Dee said she had no feeling in her legs, and that's why she was in a wheelchair. We never questioned her because we thought she was telling us the truth about Gypsy's illnesses. All the doctors were agreeing with her, so we didn't need to contradict her with questions. We went back to the hotel room, and Dee Dee went to her car to get Gypsy fresh clothes or something. And when she left the room, Gypsy started jumping from bed to bed. Me and my sister was shocked. The minute she heard the door, she dropped like a rag doll again. Me and my sister just looked at each other and didn't say anything. Next thing, she's packing Gypsy up and they leave. Gypsy was about 9. We didn't hear from Dee Dee again till about 2 years ago. She found us on Facebook. When we started to ask questions about her or Gypsy, she would block us for months with no response. She was the baby of us, and she was well protected by our mother. Dee Dee always got what she wanted.
I mean, that's pretty much what we had heard about Dee Dee and their family, going back to our early episodes when we had some interviews with them, and even the Blanchards. Everybody, even their friends, knew that Dee Dee got what she wanted. And that's pretty much the story of Dee Dee's life. Always, the doctors even did it for her. Dee Dee says she wants this prescription for Gypsy. Done. Dee Dee wants a new car. Done.
I mean, the thing is with me here, though, is the ragdoll. 2 incidents, years apart. And yeah, we see it. We think it's weird. We're like, that's interesting. She leaves. We don't question it. We don't do anything else. That makes me so angry.
Yeah. Yeah, it's mind-blowing. Like, I don't know. I have 3 nieces, and if one of my nieces was all of a sudden in a wheelchair, and when my brother left the room, she was playing and acting normal, and then when my brother came back in the room, she dropped to the floor like she couldn't move, I would definitely be asking questions. And if he would block me, I would show up on his doorstep. If he would move, I would be like, okay, something is definitely not fucking right here. What are they doing to my niece? Like, How does everybody just say, oh, well, if we ask a question, she blocks us. So you know what? We just don't ask questions anymore.
Right.
I don't. It's crazy.
It totally is crazy. And that's what they describe over and over and over again. Bobby described it. Her sisters describe it. When I talked to the brothers and the sisters all together, they described it. And it never occurred to them. It didn't occur to them to be concerned because her mother, they think she killed her mom. And it didn't occur to them to question her poisoning their stepmom. Like, it just, whatever. I just don't understand that. I literally don't. So here's another letter. This is an interesting one. I thought this was really crazy. So this is from somebody who knew Dee Dee. Her name is Phyllis. And she knew Dee Dee when she was younger. She knew Dee Dee when she had Gypsy. And this is a message that she is sending to Claudia. And Claudia then, which is one of the other sister, then goes ahead and forwards on to Mike again to show people questioning, which if you were questioning, why was nothing done? Here it is. I think this is really funny. The subject is called Turtle, which is that what they're meaning Gypsy is? I don't know. But it starts off with Facebook message from Sandra. So I don't know if Phyllis is Sandra or if Phyllis is sending a message from Sandra to Claudia.
No. It got to Mike.
But it got to Mike. Anyway, and here it is. So, back in the early 90s, when Dee Dee was living on Palmetto in the project, I noticed a lot of strange behavior from Dee Dee. Things like Dee Dee putting crushed pills in Gypsy's food. When I asked her why she did this, she replied, Gypsy can't swallow the pills, so I crush them up and put them in different foods. That way she gets her medicine. Gypsy was never as sick as Dee Dee made her out to be. When she told me she had to move to a bigger apartment in the projects that was wheelchair accessible, I asked her why Gypsy was not in a wheelchair. She replied, well, she will be soon, and since they have one open and needs to take it now. He always doted over Gypsy, not letting her play outside, always talking about keeping her calm. He rarely allowed anyone to watch Gypsy, as she would say no one knew how to take care of her and her various medical conditions. On more than one occasion, I would take Dee Dee to the doctor in Raceland, and Gypsy would stay in the car with me. She was a happy, loving child, and we would sing songs together to pass the time. As soon as Dee Dee would come back out, Gypsy would become quiet and not want to sing songs with me for her mom. Dee Dee contacted me one day and told me she had used me as a reference for CPS. I told her that was fine, not a problem. When CPS contacted me, I told them that she was a very attentive mother and always had Gypsy with her. Over the next year or so, I saw behavior that didn't seem right to me. Gypsy never gained weight, was always lethargic, and didn't seem to have any spirit. This was not the child that I had known. Did seem to come up with some excuse or answer for everything that was asked about Gypsy. There were a lot of trips to the Ronald McDonald house. They didn't seem to be needed, but I am not a doctor. I didn't really know any better until I started doing some reading about some of the conditions Gypsy was supposed to have, and it did not make sense to me. So I called CPS myself. And did not make sense to me. When I would confront Dee Dee about these things, she would get all upset, tell me I didn't know what I was talking about, and the doctors knew better than me. So I called CPS myself. And they came out and checked out Dee Dee and Gypsy and found no grounds for any further investigation. Dee Dee and Gypsy both served in my wedding when Gypsy was 4 or 5 and was fine that day, was able to walk and dance and play with other children. A week later, she was back sick and having to sit down all the time. Once Dee Dee's mother passed away, Dee Dee seemed to have gone off the deep end. She ended up moving away for a short time, and I lost contact with her. When she came back, Gypsy was much more sick than she had ever been. Dee Dee had moved in with her father and stepmother, and soon after the stepmother became ill. Not long after Dee Dee had left their home, their stepmother was fine again. Dee Dee and Gyps never ate what are considered regular food, hamburgers, hot dogs, seafood. They basically ate vegetarian or vegan diet, or as I would say, they ate what food ate. So that's an interesting letter. I mean, clearly, again, we see that CPS was not prepared to know what the hell they were looking for. You know, at least this person called.
I find it so interesting that she's like, I looked up these medical conditions and something wasn't right.
Yeah,
but more than the doctors did.
Right.
Doctors didn't question it.
No, she's got muscular dystrophy. Doesn't seem like she has muscular dystrophy, and that's okay. It's okay.
Sugar allergy. Yes, sugar allergy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Not a thing.
No.
Okay.
I like this lady. She's like, I don't know about this. And then she goes, Dee Dee, this doesn't seem right. Don't ask questions. Okay.
Like, don't ask, don't tell.
like she's 4 or 5 years old. She's dancing and playing at this wedding. And then, like, a few days later, wheelchair.
Right.
Mom comes into the room, ragdoll. Like, drop to the floor.
I mean,
classic signs of abuse.
Right? Like, oh, she's singing and playing, and then mom comes in. Oh, no, I'm not going to talk. I'm just going to sit here. It's just so, God, it was so apparent. These are the times.
Well, and so a letter was sent to Gypsy.
Don't go anywhere. The Good Wives will be right back.
Hey guys, it's me again, Cajun Mama Ty here with, you guessed it, another wonderful recipe. So, as the ladies are winding down Wisconsin and getting to the end of this Gypsy case, I decided to go ahead with a very easy, simple dessert. So today, I'm going to give you the recipe for easy cheesecake. Who doesn't love a good cheesecake?
All right, so we've got some letters here from various people to Mike that they wrote after Gypsy was arrested and he became her defense attorney, basically detailing events that they remember were strange to them. Now, mind you, when these events happened, they did nothing. None of these people did anything, but it was enough to get significant for them to remember them almost 20 years later.
Right.
So the first one I'm going to read is from her sister Dorla, who, and I don't know if it's Dorla or Darla. It is written Dorla. So that to me is Dorla. But when they say it like Darla. And I don't know if that's an accent or if they really think that it means Darla, like Darla, like from the Little Rascals. I don't know. Any which way.
Oh, I love that movie.
I do too. But I don't know. Definitely not how you spell Darla. So, but anyway, it says, my name is Darla Petrie, and this was received to Mike in October of 2015. So just a couple months after everything happened. So my name is Darla Petrie. I am one of Dee Dee's sisters. I only have a couple of times I can recall due to the fact that I lived in Mississippi during the time her and T-Rod, that's Rod, obviously, got married and even started dating, had Gypsy, got divorced, etc. On one event, I came down to the bayou to visit my parents and my daughters were playing outside. I came down to the bayou to visit with my parents and my daughters were playing outside. Then Dee Dee came to visit with Gypsy. She was in a wheelchair. Dee Dee went to the store and left Gypsy with us. As soon as her mother was out of sight, Gypsy got out of the wheelchair and went and jumped on the trampoline with my girls. The minute she saw her mother coming back, she dropped like a rag doll, like she couldn't move her legs anymore. Dee Dee got out of the car and came over to the trampoline and yelled at Gypsy and pulled her off and put her back in her wheelchair. Got in the car and left before we could ask any questions. Years later, me and my sister went on a vacation, and Dee Dee and Gypsy surprised us and came visit us in the hotel room. We went walk on the beach, and my sister carried Gypsy on her back for a piggyback ride because Dee Dee said she had no feeling in her legs, and that's why she was in a wheelchair. We never questioned her because we thought she was telling us the truth about Gypsy's illnesses. All the doctors were agreeing with her. So we didn't think to contradict her with questions. We went back to the hotel room, and Dee Dee went to her car to get Gypsy fresh clothes or something, and when she left the room, Gypsy started jumping from bed to bed. Me and my sister was shocked. The minute she heard the door, she dropped like a rag doll again. Me and my sister just looked at each other and didn't say anything. Next thing, she's packing Gypsy up and they leave. Gypsy was about 9. Now, mind you, that is crossed out and there is something else underneath it. And it looks like they say that Gypsy is actually like 11, but I don't know. We didn't hear from Dee Dee again till about 2 years ago. She found us on Facebook. When we started to ask questions about her or Gypsy, she would block us for months with no response. She was the baby of us, and she was well protected by her mother. Dee Dee always got what she wanted. So I find it interesting that they crossed this out. I really do. Because that shows, again, bad historians.
I mean, it's just crazy that for, 15 years, they just disappear and then, they're on Facebook.
Well, and then she's talking about how she's in a wheelchair, and Dee Dee's describing, you know why she's ends up in the wheelchair? Because it's right after the freaking motorcycle accident with their dad. So this is bullshit.
It's just crap. It's just lies. It's very much a distance of relationship. It's not typical sibling, not typical aunt, uncle to me. And I know a lot of families are different, that some people are really close and some people
I feel
are,
like it's
are
like,
really
well, we
distant.
want to tell, I feel like we want to tell the truth, but yet we don't want to be implicated in the fact that we knew and we didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So I'm going to change the narrative just enough so that it doesn't look like I freaking did anything, Well, I mean, I tried to ask questions, but she didn't answer. Well, that's really weird. I would think
that shit would never went down in my family like that.
Absolutely not. No. If I saw my sister doing something like that, like, what the hell are you doing? What is going on with your kid? What do you mean she's jumping from bed to bed? Are you kidding me? Like, what the fuck?
And why?
And why is she falling over?
Really, why when you walk in the room does she drop to the floor?
Classic abuse.
Right, it's classic abuse. Anybody who would have seen that, it would have been they're doing something because they just walked in the room. That's a sign that there's a lot of obedience and threatening that if you were doing something, you can get in trouble for it. That's not what you're supposed to do. And so Gypsy was disobeying, but as soon as her mom was probably reaching for a doorknob or they heard the car pull in the driveway, get back in that wheelchair.
Right. We've got another letter, and this letter comes to Mike somehow from her other sister Claudia, but it's a Facebook message marked as from Sandra. So Sandra appears to be somebody that knew Dee Dee and Gypsy when they were in Louisiana. So I'm going to read that because it's interesting too. So back in the early 90s, when Dee Dee was living on Palmetto in the project, I noticed a lot of strange behavior from Dee Dee. Things like Dee Dee putting crushed pills in Gypsy's food. When I asked her why she did this, she replied, "Gypsy can't swallow the pills, so I crush them up and put them in different foods. That way she gets her medicine."
Okay, round 2. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Gypsy was never as sick as Dee Dee made her out to be. When she told me she had to move to a bigger apartment in the project that was wheelchair accessible, I asked her why Gypsy was not in a wheelchair. She replied, "Well, she will be soon. And since they had one open and needs to take it now." Dee Dee always doted over Gypsy, not letting her play outside, always talking about keeping her calm, which is something that we hear from the siblings about what Dee Dee's mother would say about Dee Dee when she was little. So then Dee Dee rarely allowed anyone to watch Gypsy, as she would say no one knew how to take care of her and her various medical conditions. On more than one occasion, I would take Dee Dee to the doctor in Raceland, and Gypsy would stay in the car with me. She was a happy, loving child, and we would sing songs together to pass the time. As soon as Dee Dee would come back out, Gypsy would become quiet and not want to sing songs with me for her mom. Dee Dee contacted me one day and told me she had used me as a reference for CPS. I told her that was fine, not a problem. When CPS contacted me, I told them that she was a very attentive mother and always had Gypsy with her. Over the next year or so, I saw behavior that didn't seem right to me. Gypsy never gained weight, was always lethargic, and didn't seem to have any spirit. This was not the child that I had known. Dee Dee always seemed to come up with some excuse or answer for everything that was asked about Gypsy. There were a lot of trips to Ronald McDonald House that they didn't seem to be needed. But I am not, in all caps, a doctor. I didn't really know any better until I started doing some reading about some of the conditions that Gypsy was supposed to have. And it did not make sense to me. When I would confront Dee Dee about these things, she would get all upset, tell me I didn't know what I was talking about, and the doctors knew better than me. So I called CPS myself. And then they came out and checked out Dee Dee and Gypsy and found no grounds for any further investigation. Dee Dee and Gypsy both served in my wedding when Gypsy was 4 or 5 and was fine. That day was able to walk and dance and play with other children. A week later, she was back sick and having to sit down all the time. When Dee Dee's mother passed away, Dee Dee seems to have gone off the deep end. She ended up moving away for a short time, and I lost contact with her. When she came back, Gypsy was much more sick than she had ever. Dee Dee moved in with her father and stepmother, and soon after the stepmother became ill. Not long after Dee Dee had left their home, the stepmother was fine again. Dee Dee and Gypsy never ate what are considered regular food, hamburgers, hot dogs, seafood. They ate basically a vegan or vegetarian diet, or as I would say, they ate what food ate. They ate what food ate. That's correct. That cracks me up. But again, here we see what we've talked about this whole time, that CPS.
I think when I hear like Gypsy, when I hear the words and I picture her, I just picture her having like a constant tantrum when she doesn't get her way or what she wants. And with the media portraying her the way she actually is, it pissed her off. And she's still trying to play that sweet role. Like, it's not what it seemed. I really loved my mom. But then you see it in certain ways, like, what was that last thing that she said, my psycho ex? Like, I can just visualize her like stomping her feet, like, it wasn't me, it was my psycho ex, and getting mad when people say, well, you helped with this, what are you talking about? So it just shows like the manipulation that I just picture her like a spoiled brat who, if you say anything that doesn't agree with her narrative, now you're the enemy.
Yeah.
You're the enemy, and you don't talk to me, and you're a psycho, you're my ex-friend, Aaliyah's a bully, Nick is a psycho, anything that doesn't go her way.
Fancy's dragging me around in the media, being shitty about me and my relationships.
Yes.
Exactly. Christy,
that's
is being cut off.
Story of the year.
Christy's not coming to my wedding.
She acted with the jailer.
Right.
When she, from what we heard from the jailer, she was just like a brat. Like, oh, you don't want to get to know me and not treat me like special Gypsy. Well, then fuck you, and I'm going to make your life miserable now.
Right. Christy, you're not getting to come to the wedding because you're doing whatever you're doing, and I don't agree with it, so you don't get to come to the wedding. That's just the way she is. This is Gypsy. Yep. This is absolutely Gypsy. It started with, it does start with, I'm going to kill my mom all the way through. And there's no change in this behavior. And we will be talking about that in our next episode. Coming up, we are going to talk a little bit about Nick's trial and the plea deal that he was offered, and some of the things that happened in his trial. Again, where CPS clearly is not prepared for these types of cases, which is what we have been talking about the whole time, and what we started out to want to, change. That's one of the things we want to educate people on, and hope that through what we're doing, we can, somehow change these laws and the education in the CPS system, the doctors, the nurses, teachers, all that good stuff. But I mean, this woman, again, she sees things that aren't quite right, and nothing happens.
Well, I got two things. That Dee Dee told her, well, she'll be in a wheelchair soon. Like, why?
With no other explanation other than that.
Soon. And then I admire this woman for looking at Gypsy's medical diagnosis, researching a little bit, and questioning it. Like, this doesn't seem right. Like, I'm not a doctor. Right. And so she did more, and she's like, well, Dee Dee says that I shouldn't talk about it, but this doesn't seem right. I'm gonna call CPS. Like, go you.
Right.
Like, you're like the only person in this entire saga who did anything.
Who did anything? What'd you say?
Like,
yeah, she was the only person from start to finish that actually attempted to get some kind of help for Gypsy at that time.
Right. Other than whoever the anonymous person is in Springfield calls, which nobody has ever said that was them. So, yeah.
Could be.
Okay, so we got one more letter here. This is a fun one. You guys are going to like this. Now, I have to preface this. My girls may go crazy listening to this because nobody has read this yet. And there's some interesting things in here. This is a letter from Rod to Mike. And kind of interesting. So, all right. No one will ever know the amount of deception that Dee Dee seemed to fool so many people with. Soon the facts will surface to prove just how manipulating and controlling she was. This is my version of some of these facts. After meeting Dee Dee in 1990 at the local bowling alley, we started dating. One day she showed me all the concert t-shirts she had collected. There were so many. As she showed me each one, many of which were signed by artists, she would say, I met them backstage. I went on tour with this one and that one. And I figured, oh, she's a groupie. But she's going to college to be a nurse, so I can deal with that. The point here is that I believe she had a desire to meet every celebrity on the planet. She wanted for Gypsy as well. Presenting Gypsy as a handicapped was one way to pave the road to fulfilling these desires. See scrapbooks recovered from their home. So Dee Dee became pregnant for Gypsy after her and I dated for about 4 months. I was 17 at the time. I thought she was 21, but just found out she was actually 24. She told me that the pregnancy would be risky because of some pre-existing medical issues she had as a child. Stomach issues that left her unable to digest meat. We were married when she was about 2 months into her pregnancy. After 3 months of marriage, we became separated. I moved out of her parents' place and was convinced that she, although still pregnant, was not the love of my life, and something just didn't feel right with the relationship. Because our time was so short, I never really got to know the real Dee Dee. She was a bit weird and exotic. She had a pet tarantula spider and was into sorcery and witchcraft. Other than that, she seemed to be a simple Southern girl with a decent head on her shoulders, and I was committed to being the best father I could, regardless of our relationship. After Gypsy, just wait. After Gypsy was born, Dee Dee started telling me that Gypsy had medical issues. First, it was sleep apnea. First, it was sleep apnea at around 3 months. She needed a breathing/sleep monitor. At this point, I decided to rent a small 2-bedroom house because she was telling me that she had no other place to live. I was a deckhand on a shrimp boat, and she quit school due to the pregnancy. This did not last long. I felt so trapped. I began seeing that she was playing me. I never saw Gypsy display any medical issues. We separated again, and then Dee and I's relationship got a bit nasty. I ran, and she chased through lawyers and courts. She won a judgment for alimony for $100 a month that I paid until her death. She would bring to court piles of medical receipts, summing thousands of dollars. She won every judgment. I was ordered to pay child support, alimony, all medical expenses, and provide medical insurance. It got to the point that I was so tired of going to court for medical expenses that I decided to give her an additional $350 a month to cover medical expenses if she would agree to quit taking me to court for medical bills. She agreed to the deal. All I did at this point was put my head down and work more at sea. I soon left the shrimping industry and joined the oil field, where over the years, I eventually obtained a captain's license and was able to provide medical insurance for Gypsy. I always paid up what was due and tried having a relationship with Gypsy. I spent so much time offshore that it was hard to get Dee Dee to agree on a time and place for visit. She would lay this big old guilt trip on me about abandoning her and our sick child. It was very frustrating. When I did see Gypsy, the poor child would be shaking because she seemed terrified of me. I don't know what Dee Dee would tell her, but she seemed so scared of me, and the visits just never felt natural. Looking back now, I'm not sure if it wasn't Dee Dee of whom she feared. Dee Dee would have it so planned out, like she would prepare Gypsy for our visits, coaching her on what to say and how to act. It was always this way with Gypsy. Dee Dee was always there to play Gypsy as her little. Dee Dee moved in with her father, Claude, after some time, and Gypsy was riding on the motorcycle with Claude. There was an accident. They were both okay, but I remember Dee Dee telling me Gypsy had hurt her leg and would need crutches and maybe a wheelchair. A few months after Dee Dee is telling me that, Gypsy has some sort of muscular disorder and her legs hurt. She would need to be in a wheelchair for some time. One of her sisters told me one day, quote, "Rod, Gypsy can walk, you know," end quote. It's Dee Dee making her act like she can't walk. I questioned Dee Dee on this, and she said her sisters didn't know what they were talking about, and their condition was not real serious yet, but sometime her leg muscles hurt really bad, and she needed the wheelchair then. It seemed logical enough, and I never once questioned any of Gypsy's medical conditions since then. The medical just kept coming as Gypsy got older. There was a chromosome disorder affecting her growth and development of her digestive system. She would need a feeding tube. The epilepsy affected her eyesight and hearing. Her teeth were falling apart from the medicine she needed to be on. She told me that Gypsy's life expectancy was 15 years old. We attended Special Olympics with her. We were flat out sold on Gypsy's conditions. So, too, were many organizations that helped needy children. Ronald McDonald House, Make-A-Wish Foundation, Children's Hospital, doctors, Medicaid, neighbors, friends, judges, everyone. She used Gypsy's condition to fill her desire to meet every celebrity, take free trips to Disney, enjoy free stays at the hospital, and take free flights. After some unexplained ordeal with her father, Dee Dee told me she wanted to move away from him and the rest of the family as far as she could. Her and Gypsy moved to Thibodaux, LA, where I visited them a few times. Then a while later moved to Mandeville, LA. I never visited them there, but I did see Gypsy a few times after they moved there. We met at a city park in New Orleans one day, and Dee Dee and Gypsy came to my house in Cutoff for a visit one day. That was the last time I saw Gypsy. Hurricane Katrina had them evacuated and located at Springfield's Habitat for Humanity in 2005. We kept in touch every couple of months, mostly on Facebook, phone calls, and the occasional Christmas or birthday card. We had a vacation planned to visit them 2 years ago. That never worked out because Dee Dee went AWOL. A few days before the trip dates, we lost contact and never made the detour to Missouri from our Tennessee trip. She told me Gypsy got real sick and was in the hospital for a week. We cut our trip short and headed home, never having made the visit. For Gypsy's 18th birthday, I called to tell her happy birthday. I spoke to Dee Dee for a few minutes and told her I wanted to tell Gypsy happy 18th birthday. She told me, "Rod, don't tell her she's 18 years old. She thinks she's like 14 or something. That's the mindset she has." It was weird, but did as Dee Dee asked. Dee Dee decided that Gypsy needed to be homeschooled due to her conditions and explained that her learning was slow due to seizures. She said Gypsy would learn stuff and have a seizure that would affect her memory and knock her back some with her studies. I don't know if she ever really homeschooled Gypsy or not. We would talk about things she liked, sci-fi conventions, Harry Potter, playing dress-up, Disney. Every single phone call conversation I have ever had with Gypsy has been under the direct supervision of Dee Dee. At her time of choosing, I believe Dee Dee would coach her every time to be nice to me. Gypsy never once called me. I don't think she even had my phone number. I didn't know then that she had a cell phone. I have always made support payments to Dee Dee for the care of Gypsy. Gypsy was 23 years old, and I was still making $1,200 monthly payments to Dee Dee for Gypsy's care. I felt like it was the right thing to do and figured Gypsy was so sick that Dee would never be able to work, so I was just going to keep paying as long as I could. I provided money for school supplies every year, sent money when they would take a trip, Christmas and birthday. There was absolutely no reason for Dee Dee or Gypsy to fear me whatsoever. After seeing the news, I was extremely shocked when I discovered that Gypsy could walk, and now that she is not in need of any special medications. It didn't take me long to paint a picture in my mind of what could have led to such events. I thought, wow, how could a child be part of their parents' death? That child must be really mentally ill or have been put through some terrible abuse or both. I feel like I have been robbed of a relationship with my child. All the summers I could have taken Gypsy. I was always too scared to ask for her to come to stay with me. I was so scared of her medical condition. I have no medical experience. What do I do if she starts having seizures on me? Would she trust me to care for her in the right way? Dee Dee controlled Gypsy to the point that Gypsy's best friends were not aware that she could walk and wasn't sick. Dee Dee shaved Gypsy's head to fake her chemo treatment. Gypsy ran away twice and was quickly caught by Dee Dee. I wonder why she never called me. Dee Dee must have had her convinced I was a monster and never showed my phone number with Gypsy. The police investigated her home from an anonymous tip about Gypsy's so-called conditions. Dee Dee lied to the investigating officer and told them that she was in Missouri to get away from Gypsy's abusive father. However, there's no record of that in Louisiana. Dee Dee was such the con artist. She was the nicest person. Every time I called to check in on them, everything was always fine. Gypsy was sometimes feeling under the weather and couldn't talk. She sends lots of love and would ask about my other children and wife, Christy. She sent cards for Christmas and Father's Day gifts. I have no reason to believe she was fooling the whole world the whole time. Now, he goes on to make a list of things to consider. This is kind of interesting. Why is her family not screaming bloody murder? They're in defense of Gypsy and knew Dee Dee was a bit manipulative and controlling. Dee Dee moved away so she could tell any story she liked without having anyone there to collaborate her story, like family or old friends. She could then control Gypsy's life and make-believe world.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
She has warrants in Louisiana. She tried poisoning her stepmother. Gypsy ran away twice, only to be recaptured by Dee Dee. She pulled a gun out on my sister Celeste while stealing the car I had given to Celeste.
Where'd the gun? Where'd you get the gun?
She blocked Gypsy from her own medical records. She forged Gypsy's birth certificate. She imprisoned, controlled, and brainwashed Gypsy, forcing her to act ill and handicapped. She conned all sorts of organizations mentioned previously. A prescription pad was found in her home. She was writing her own prescriptions. Now, mind you, no one has ever seen that prescription pad outside of Christy and Rod. Just saying. She had a feeding tube put into Gypsy's stomach, which is still there. Gypsy can eat whole food. Prior to events, I have never been contacted by any law enforcement, doctors, lawyers, or friends of Dee Dee and Gypsy in Missouri. List of evidence that I'm aware of shoring up these facts. Letters from Dee Dee to Medicaid listing all of Gypsy's so-called conditions. Gypsy's scrapbooks. Prescription pad found in her home. 2 each receipts from Miranda Lambert's foundation in the amount of $3,000 each. My bank statement showing child support payments for the last 18 months. Gypsy's forged birth certificate, and Gypsy not being allowed access to her own medical records. So guys, did you hear anything in there that you were surprised about?
Insurance.
How many times have Rod and Christy repeatedly said in interviews that Dee Dee would not allow them to put Gypsy on their insurance? How many times?
Many times per thing they're video on.
Many times in conversations we've had with them. In fact, we've asked this many a time. We've questioned it many a time. But here he is telling she was on his insurance. She was on his insurance.
He said it. It's like 4 times in that letter.
4 times in that letter. But she also had Medicaid, and she was requiring him to pay extra bills. Are you serious, dude? Like, serious?
Oh, my God.
You're lying here, or you're lying there. I don't know which, but you're lying.
Well, I mean, if he didn't produce any insurance documents stating that she was on his insurance, I think he's lying in that letter.
I don't know. Because we've always wondered why,
that document was never shown. There is no, Rod's insurance statement that says, who are the dependents on his insurance that are covered.
Right. Well, I didn't know anything about her medical conditions, but here's one of the sisters telling her, Rod, Gypsy can walk. Dee Dee's making her do this.
And then nothing. Didn't do anything with that.
Yeah. Oh, the sisters don't know what I'm talking about. I'm never, and then never questions anything ever again.
And then saying that she wants to move far, far away. And she moves to town, then she moves to town, and then she's in Missouri and I never saw her. And then, she was in the hospital. Well, you can still go see her in the hospital, dude.
It's not like he didn't know where she lived. He sent shit to her.
Right, like you are in Tennessee, just, make the U to go back to Louisiana and go see her at Children's Hospital. Even if you're only there for a few hours, I'm sure she would have loved to see you. You don't have to just, cut your vacation short, which I doubt he did. He probably just stayed more in Tennessee.
I think he just made it really easy for him not to be involved, and I think deep down inside that was okay with him for the most part.
Yeah.
Oh,
he caught her in several lies, and we just caught them in several lies. And it just...
Well, who also lies? Gypsy.
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 They all lie.
Everybody lies. Moral of the story, everybody lies.
Which is why we have become, in some ways, guys, very jaded with this story. It is not at all what any of us set out to think we were getting involved with.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
Do you want to read some of the clips from Gypsy's letter real quick, Colleen?
Yep. So Gypsy wrote a letter to the people who signed her power of attorney, and she refers to them as her aunt and uncle, Rachel and Ray. And I'm only going to read a few statements from this letter because mostly she just discusses how that she is sorry for what happened. She says, "Please know that I'm not the evil, twisted monster the media is trying and succeeding in making me out to be. Yes, I am in trouble in a part of this homicide tragic act, but everyone forgets I did not kill her. My ex did, and even confessed any part was small in all of this."
Are you kidding me? Are you shitting me? So for 2 years I planned a small part, for 2 years I planned her fucking murder, but it's a small part. It's a small part,
It's small.
Small.
And she says, "I'm taking the heat for it. The media has even shared pics of me in a costume." And this drives me nuts. She's a costume from last Halloween, a comic book girl from the Batman comics. But they make me out to be a love crazy, troubled, and evil. And I'm not. Are you freaking kidding me? For Halloween, your mom dressed you up as Cinderella.
Right.
Like, you're dressed as Harley Quinn in a bikini top.
And sucking on a knife!
Right, like, that's not Halloween, girl. You were taking some slutty pics.
You were taking sexting pics for your boyfriend. Let's just, but she did the same thing when she tried to convince her dad that she had nothing to do with it when he first talked to her. Don't believe anything the media says, which further proves my point of why things happened the way they did between us, the family, and Gypsy, which we will be talking about next episode. Because that is right there, states how she was upset with how the media was portraying her. So she set out to cause her own narrative of America's sweetheart murderer.
And she says that, she would have called them. No, you wouldn't. You didn't even call your dad. You didn't call anybody.
Right.
Like, ever. And the last line, or she says that she loves her mom and that things are not always as they seem, that it was an act. But the last line drives me nuts.
That makes it show she knew it was an act.
Yep. She says, "This led to a disaster and my psycho ex didn't care." Like,
So again, here she is laying it all on Nicholas from the very beginning.
My psycho ex.
My psycho ex. Not that she riled him up for 2 fucking years about it. Not that she told him that she, none of those things. Not that she went on and on about how she was being abused and got him all upset. No, he's just a psycho.
Yeah, it's just putting that, this was only she wrote this letter a couple of weeks after she was arrested. And it just goes to show, she had those breadcrumbs. So that way she could say, my psycho ex.
My psycho ex.
He's got all the evidence. He's confessing. I have trained him very well. I pumped him up. He did it. I played a small part. Her lawyer is a genius.
Absolutely.
Hey guys, it's me with the easy cheesecake recipe. I promise you, even your kids could do this recipe. Except for the oven. An adult has to put the oven on and put the cake in and out the oven. So even kids could do this, but you still need a little adult supervision. So the ingredients we have are yellow cake mix, butter, eggs, a package of cream cheese, and some confectioner's sugar, but we call that powdered sugar. So you want to make sure that your oven is preheated 350 degrees. You want a good baking pan, a 9x13, and you want to make sure that you grease it real good. Put your cooking spray. And then in a large mixing bowl, you want to put the cake mix, the butter, one of the eggs, and then you want to put the batter into the pan. In a medium-sized mixing bowl, you want to mix together the cream cheese, 2 eggs, and the sugar. Then you want to pour the cream cheese mixture over the cake mixture to where it's not gonna. You don't want to mix it together. You want to have your cake at the bottom layer, so your cake is like your crust, and then your cheese mixture on top. You bake it in the oven for 35 minutes until it's golden brown. And I promise you, this will be the best cheesecake you've ever eaten. You can even add a little strawberry compote to it, like macerated strawberries, and you mix it with a little sugar in it, and then you pour it on top with the strawberries, or cherry pie mixture out of the can. Whatever kind of fruit you want to put on top, you go for it. It's delicious, and I promise you, anybody can make it without messing it up.
We absolutely love hearing from our listeners, and we'd like to invite you to send us a question for us to answer or a case you'd like us to cover. You can do this in 2 different ways. You can send us a message right here at anchor.fm/truecrimewives, and we might play it live in one of our next episodes, or you can drop us an email at goodwivesdish, that's DISH, @gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you. Don't go anywhere. The Good Wives will be right back. What if you could be a true crime detective right from the comfort of your own home? Dispatch is an interactive serial mystery that unfolds over several months. Imagine the experience of an escape room in your own home, a new kind of escape called Dispatch. It's a subscription box that is a step apart from everyday entertainment, better than a book, more engaging than television, Think of it as an immersive mystery where you wear the detective hat. The story begins with the first delivery, or dispatch, if you will. In it, you'll find physical clues that lead you to the web and back to the real world to unravel a mysterious crime. Grab a friend, the whole family, and your thinking cap, and get ready to put your heads together for one mind-bending ride, as additional details are revealed with every package. Check out the description for a special link to grab your dispatch box today and start your own true crime detectiving.
Yes, it's me, Cajun Mama Ty, just coming to you from good old Louisiana. But today I decided instead of doing a French word, I went and did some research and I found something really odd. So I looked up on the internet words that only Wisconsin people would know. So there was a little list, and kind of most of the list were things that we said here in Louisiana, like this, that, these, those, and there were a few other ones, but the one that was like really crazy to me was the word sack. So when Louisiana people, especially, with the Saints in the playoffs, sack, we think of tackling a quarterback while the ball is behind the line of scrimmage. Another crazy thing in Louisiana that we call sack are men's testicles. I know it's kind of gross and it's TMI, but when I think of that word, that's what I think of. But to a Wisconsin person, a sack is something used to hold groceries. It's what we know as a plain old grocery bag. I thought it was kind of funny, and kind of a little weird, but I wanted to share it with you guys. So yes, today's word is sack. And hey, Louisiana, not sack the quarterback. It's a grocery bag. Real crazy. Go Saints to the Super Bowl.
Moving right along. So we're back now, and we're on to the portion of Nick's trial. Nick was very unsatisfied with his original attorneys. He asked many times for them to be removed from the case. The judge did not do so. Originally, Nick asked for a bench trial, realized somewhere along the way that probably wasn't going to go real smooth for him, and decided to go ahead and get a jury trial. He even considered moving the change of venue. And in one of his letters, let me pull this little letter out here. I think this was kind of interesting. Where are they? Texts, web history, case file, personal letter. Here we go. Let's see. So here's the one where he says, I would like to ask the court accept my letter as motion to schedule a status hearing. It says on 7/25/17. I would like the court to allow me to file a motion to have my public defender removed as counsel. I do not yet have my full discovery after more than a year requesting such. I would request a motion to disclose full discovery. I would request a supervision hearing because of discovery. I have already viewed, but there is more I have yet to be granted the opportunity to view, and a suppression nearly hearing would be premature at this time. Please schedule a court date to address this issue. Thank you. Respectfully submitted, Nicholas P. Godejohn. That was denied. He did not get a reversal of counsel. Okay. Oh, so here's a letter from him to his dad on 6/18/2017. Dear Dad, my last court date went well. However, my next court date should be coming up soon on the 23rd this month. It should be official that I will have a jury trial after that date. Most likely it would be sometime next year. It's also likely that I could have a change of venue if that happens. It is most likely going to be Kansas City or St. Louis. Me personally, I would prefer St. Louis because with it being a large city, crimes like the one I'm allegedly in here for happen every day, which makes them more likely to be lenient on me. Also, because it's a first crime in Missouri as well, this case is a little more justified than normal, along with other factors too. The best news is if I approach this the right way, I could be acquitted as well. Either way, if I have to go to the U.S. Supreme Court just for this to be handled correctly, I will. So don't worry too much, Dad. I'm determined for my life to fight till the very end. As for the book, I mailed Aunt Rosie about it, so please let me know if it was sent the right way. Please, I would appreciate it. Also, I love you and the rest of the family dearly. Hope to hear good news when I call towards the beginning of next month. Talk to you then, Dad. Your loving son, Nicholas Godejohn. By the way, Happy Father's Day. So he thinks that if he gets tried in St. Louis, where crime is bigger, that it means that they're going to be more lenient on him because people murder people every day. That's how the justice system works.
I like how what I allegedly did. No, you confessed.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know what this shows me right here? He is very thoughtful. He can think. He is able to process. People have said, oh, he doesn't know the ability to deliberate. But yeah, he does. Because he knows that if he's in a bigger city, he thinks, he's sitting here thinking about it. He is literally thinking about what is the possible way for me to get out of all of this. Oh, well, if I end up being moved to a bigger city, then it's more likely that they'll be lenient because this happens all the time. And I have justification because I was killing her. He can deliberate just fine, my friends. I mean, this letter clearly from the discovery file proves that.
He can think for himself. He knows from right and wrong. He knows that he shouldn't say that, I killed her in the letter. That's why he's saying allegedly, because he knows that they might read the letter. He is smart and thoughtful and thinking these small details through.
Right. Oh, yeah. And then he goes on when he writes his Aunt Rosie, he talks about, again, how he's going to have an interesting day because he's going to be going to court on the day that he was arrested, which is interesting. And he's going to be letting the judge know on that day that he wants a jury trial and that he wished to go to it. Benefits me more. Heck, I might even get acquitted due to unable to get a fair trial.
Yep.
It looks promising for me. Just got to approach it the right way to make it a reality. I hope to hear from you in the near future. Love your nephew, Nicholas P. Godejohn. So, folks, he is not just some kid who can't deliberate and can't think for himself. Oh, no. And I'm not saying Gypsy wasn't manipulative. Hell yeah, she was. But there you go, friends. He is able to even think about where his trial should or shouldn't be, whether he should have a jury trial or a bench trial. He is not without the ability to think or to process.
He's trying to manipulate the court system so it's better for him.
Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, that's how you work the system. I get it. I understand. That's how the system works.
Yep.
But he is able to think of that all on his own, not just his lawyers telling him this. He's able to come up with this all by himself. So one of the biggest things that people have talked about with this trial was Gypsy testifying. And Gypsy actually testified for the defense. Some people get that wrong. They think that she took her plea deal and as part of her plea deal, she was required to testify for the prosecution. That's not true. She chose to testify on Nick's behalf. When it first happened and she was doing it, I really thought that maybe it was, as a way for her to kind of atone. This was before I saw the interrogation video. And now I kind of just realized after talking with our criminologist that even though she does take, responsibility, and she does say, yes, it was me, and all those different things, her body language and the things that she is actually saying she shows no remorse whatsoever, really. And that basically it's like oh, but feel bad for me kind of situation.
Exactly.
Yeah. And we've read from the testimony that she gave before. She admits that she knew she could walk the whole time. She admits she knew she wasn't sick. At the time, I just kind of thought that meant like when she was found. No.
She said she knew when she was about 19 years old. So she had 5 years of knowing that she was fine and participating in that fraud.
And that's just her story, and that's her tale, and I'm sitting on mine. I mean, like, who knows how long she knew. Now we've heard that Rod knew, and that her siblings knew and wondered and questioned, and they told Rod that she could walk just fine, and that he was making her act like that. So now it's really a question of how long did she really know? And we've seen medical documents at this point, folks, of her pooling, saliva in her mouth and faking hearing tests and eye things, and even the word malingering in her eye tests. I mean, so literally we're hearing over and over and over again that she knew, and she testifies to that on his behalf. Meanwhile, I really don't think the testimony helped him at all.
Right. There are a couple lines in here that, her trial transcript, there's a couple pictures of her holding the microphone and talking about it. And we've read the key things, but the attorney, he asked her, did you do anything to prepare for having children with Nick? And then he asked, well, what did you do? I stole baby clothes and things for a child. And she stole it from Walmart, just like she stole the knife.
And the clothes.
Yep. And
where was she hiding these things?
Under her butt?
In her
backpack on the
house.
wheelchair?
No, in her house. Where was she hiding these things from Dee Dee? Was she putting them on her dolls and pretending that they were doll clothes?
I mean, maybe that. Maybe she stuffed them under her mattress. But he said,
the house is really messy. She probably was able to hide things without Dee Dee really being able to figure out what was what.
Yeah.
At some point,
cleaning up was done in there.
No, everybody said it was garbage and like hoardy, and her room was very cluttered, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
But he says at some point you decided to kill your mother. Is that correct? Yes. And she had already taken the plea deal, so doesn't matter what really she says at this point.
Yeah.
But it's, who's it going to help? Is it going to help her image to the public, or is it hurting or helping Nick? Did not help him.
Well, I don't. That was the attorneys, though. They did a terrible job of piecing all this together. I'm sorry. I see things that they did, like in the offer of proof. They did their jobs, but I mean, her testimony, that did absolutely no good for Nicholas whatsoever. Nothing. They did not ask the right questions.
And what was the overall of that offer of proof?
Okay, so the offer of proof, this is where the experts come in, okay? And this is, people have talked about how we have talked about autism incorrectly. I want to explain some of that tonight, in the fact that what I have said about autism is not based on regular just facts about autism. What I have been talking about in regards to this case is things that were offered in this trial. So there was two different experts on the defense side. They even had differences of opinions. And then there was the prosecution expert on this side, and he had a very different thought process of what the autism level that Nick is functioning at. And so that's what we have been talking about. Now, here's the thing. I think that the prosecution picked a really great witness, expert witness, who was very clear, very succinct, he was very easy to understand. He did not, he used small words. He talked to the jury like they didn't know what he was talking about so that they would understand him. And he was very clear. The defense attorney's expert, he did not talk in small terms. He did not speak in ways that people understood what he was trying to say. And I think it went way over the jury's head. And I think that he was a terrible expert. So in the offer of proof, here's the thing. This offer of proof came in on November 30th, 2016. And the reason that they had to do this was because the defense had passed its time for them to be able to present an expert witness. And they sprang this expert witness because they were not originally going to use autism as part of their defense. And then they decided to, and they sprang it on the prosecuting attorneys. And so what this is basically them presenting a case as to why this expert witness should be allowed, and the judge makes a ruling. So it starts off, and I've got a lot to talk about in this, but it starts off and basically they're talking about, the fact that, that they are calling this witness to the stand and whether or not he should be allowed. So the first person who gets to ask any questions is the prosecuting attorney. And he basically says, can I ask some voir dire questions of the witness? Now, this is not the same thing as what you would ask your jurors. However, it has the same name because they're asking questions of the witness. So basically, it's like, good morning, good morning. So then he asks, could you tell me the mental elements are for first-degree murder? That's Patterson asking this witness, which is Dr. Franks. And Dr. Franks responds, planning, premeditation, the ability to coolly reflect. And so then Patterson then asks, what is the definition in Missouri law for deliberation? And Dr. Franks answers, to quote that to you specifically, I would have to look it up. So then Patterson asks, what do you think it is? And Dr. Franks answers, deliberation, with a question mark, the ability to plan and direct behavior towards a specific outcome. And so then Patterson says no further questions, and they go on to the defense attorney being able to question his witness to see if they can actually have him there or not. So one of the things that's being questioned here is whether or not he is truly an expert in autism in the eyes of the court. So they start off by asking a little bit about his educational background. And so he answers, he attended Southwest Missouri State University, got a degree in psychology there in 1982. I attended the California School of Professional Psychology in Fresno and obtained a PhD in 1987. I started working as a staff psychologist at Patton State Hospital in 1987 and was licensed in California in 1989. From 1989 to 2004, I was in private practice and did predominantly forensic work in California. So he himself even says that his expert, right there, he's saying, my expertise is in forensics, not in autism, forensics. Okay, so it goes on, got a couple, there's a lot in between here, but I did highlight a couple of things. So basically, they go on to ask if he evaluated Nicholas, and he says he did. He says he meets with him twice. I met with him for a day on December 29th of 2015, and then I went out and saw him for about a half a day, maybe a little bit more, on July 29th of 2016. And then they asked what the purpose of that was, and he basically says, I initially saw him pursuant to your request to determine if he was competent to stand trial. Then they talk about the psychological evaluation. So what his answer is, well, you review So they ask, what kind of documents do you review? He says, well, you review whatever is available. In a criminal case, it's important to be able to see the police report so you can understand the offensive behavior. And then any type of mental health records or medical records are always useful. In addition, academic records, social security records, and anything that is bearing upon the person's life history and psychological functioning is to be considered. And they ask him what kind of testing you do. He talks about IQ testing, neurophysiological screening. Sometimes he'll administer academic achievement tests, and then a personality test. And in the present case, I administered an adult Asperger assessment because Mr. Godejohn had a history of Asperger syndrome, and I wanted to assess that in particular. So basically, they go on to ask him what he diagnoses him with, and he basically says that he has an autism spectrum disorder level 2, with a specifier that he requires substantial support with accompanying intellectual impairment. Meanwhile, he is asking for a different attorney. He knows how to request for the fact that he thinks that he should be in a different, venue, so that change of venue, so that he gets a better, more fair trial. But he needs substantial intellectual support.
And he knows. He's competent.
Right. So they talk a little bit about more why Asperger's is now considered autism. They talk about that autism is a neuropsychological disorder. It develops and it persists since birth. It's characterized by deficits in social understanding, social reasoning, social reciprocity, empathy, and the ability to read emotional cues in others. And then second criterion is repetitive, systemized, sort of redundant behaviors that will accompany deficits in special behavior. He talks about the different levels, and it would be more so he's saying level 2 is somebody that basically is capable of communication, satisfying their activities of daily living. However, they require substantial support. They're unable to live independently, basically unable to hold employment, function in school without support, and they need supervision. Yeah, because he got lots of supervision on that whole ride.
Right.
20 hours,
Wanting to get laid in the back of the bus.
Right. So they asked when he was first diagnosed. Nick was first diagnosed in first grade. And then later it was changed to a slightly different diagnosis. When he was 8 or 9 years old, records indicate that the diagnosis was downgraded from autism to Asperger's. There was very little psychological treatment. The records indicated, well, first of all, he did receive educational services, and he was a lifelong special education student, and he had an individualized education plan, so an IEP, that was based upon the presence of autism and Asperger's syndrome. So he received special attention and was involved in special education classes for math. The record indicated that he had a psychotic episode when he was 13 years old and experienced some auditory hallucinations and possibly visual hallucinations, and received antipsychotic medication for a period of time.
So to me, this just says that Gypsy found a man who could think but has some mental issues, and she knew that.
Right.
And over 2 years, she manipulates him, painting a picture of what she wanted to portray. And, she's like, I know he'll do it. I can get him to do it.
Well, I mean, it even goes on here. He talks about that he saw a therapist for about 3 or 4 months when he was 13 or 14 years old, and his condition resolved. He was no longer psychotic, and he did not follow up further psychiatric or psychological treatment. But he does talk about his condition's going to deteriorate. He's going to become more socially isolated. His IQ was 82, which is lower average, but working memory and processing speed was in the 70s. And that's disputed by the other prosecution. There was indication of mild birth trauma. His mother was in labor for approximately 13 hours, and the umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck, and there may have been some oxygen deprivation to his brain at this time he was born. And the parents were told at birth that he was likely going to have some form of developmental disability, but they did not know what kind. His speech development was delayed, and he was involved in speech therapy during his education. He was also a solitary child. He's never had friends. So it goes on and on. He collected rocks. He collected Beanie Babies. He's never been able to establish eye contact with other people, and that's something that persists to the present. So if we go on, let me see here. So that's basically all the details on that. So basically, they also ask him if he's suffering from some sort of mental disease or mental illness. He answers that yes. He talks about the fact that it's autism. There's nothing else. So, like, there's no DID. There's nothing else there, you know.
That's all he recognizes.
Right. And then, so Mr. Patterson objects several times to this. You know, basically, he doesn't like the fact that they are doing this. Okay, so in the end of what the defense attorney presents, basically they get into deliberation on his side. And he says, they ask him, what impact do you think this would have on his ability to deliberate, him being autistic? And he basically says, to an extremely complex question, the brief answer is that his ability to deliberate was more childlike than adult. His ability to envision consequences was virtually absent. And he thought that from a moral perspective, he was doing the right thing. So then they say, do you think that his ability to deliberate would be different if he didn't suffer from autism spectrum disorder level 2? And he says it would be dramatically different. So then Dr. Franks, you believe, if I understand you right, that his autism spectrum disorder level 2 would affect his ability to deliberate in the matter of the murder of Mrs. Blanchard. Is that correct? Yes. So that's all the questions that they have. So then now he gets to be cross-examined by Patterson. So the very first thing that Patterson brings up is that you are not board certified in forensic psychology, are you? And he says, no. He says, you've not published in the area of diminished capacity ever, have you? Nope. You've not taught in the area of diminished capacity, have you? Well, I've had extensive teaching experience and I've discussed diminished capacity with students. I've never taught a class on it. And Patterson says, well, when you testified in Missouri as an expert witness, most of the time it had to do with issues of conditional release or whether someone's a sexually violent predator. Isn't that true? And he said, well, and I've testified on competency to stand trial. And Patterson said, that's my question. Most of the time it's been on competency issues. And so then, you know, obviously the defense attorney objects and he's like, this sounds like impeachment. This would be more of an issue at trial. This is not. It's just an offer of proof. It's whether this is admissible, not the weight of it. And, you know, so then Patterson responds back, well, he went through his list of qualifications. I don't believe he's an expert. I believe I'm entitled to challenge that.
Got it.
Yeah. So, he goes on, so they're like, how many times you would testified in a Missouri court with regard to the issue of diminished capacity? And he answers 4 or 5. Then he asks, is Munchausen by proxy a mental disease or defect? And he answers, it's not listed in the DSM-5 as a mental disease or effect. Then he says, is Wicca a recognized religious belief? And then the doctor answers, recognized by whom? And Patterson says, anyone. And then he says, I think it is.
Oh, no. No. I think it is.
So he talks about, so then he asks, so did you meet with the defense prior to this? He says, yes. What did you guys discuss? His evaluation of the defendant. And he says, and you believe that you consider your work of the defendant to be your evaluation of the defendant to be a full workup. Isn't that correct? And he says, yes. And he said, and you wrote your report based on that full workup? And he says, yes. And then Patterson says, And nowhere in your report did you discuss the defendant's mental disease interfering with his ability to form a mental intent in this crime, did you? And Dr. Franks says, I indicated he functioned more like a child than an adult, and I indicated what I thought his motive was in participating in this offense. So then Patterson comes back and says, so the answer to the question is no?
No.
And so he goes, and then, Frank comes back, well, I believe that issue was addressed. And so then Patterson says, you say his ability to deliberate was more like a child than an adult, correct? That's correct. So he did have the ability to deliberate, correct? In a childlike capacity. Tell me precisely, because you've interviewed the defendant, right? I have. Tell me precisely his response to you that were childlike. And then he comes back and says, there's not a lot of language development. He's not an extremely verbal person. It's based on his cognitive capabilities, which are limited. So in terms of what he said to me that was childlike, it's based upon an overall assessment of his lifestyle. He played video games. He talked on Facebook. He's never really worked. The overall assessment suggested a developmental disability. And by definition, a development disability means that the development is behind schedule and has been fixated. Don't mean childlike. Don't mean childlike in the sense that he was playful and laughing. I mean in terms of the sophistication of his thinking and reasoning capabilities. It was more childlike.
Okay, so I'm married to a child.
Yeah, I guess, because, he plays video games and, yeah.
Solid reasoning. Okay, then a lot of the adults I know, kids.
So they go back and forth a little bit more about having the ability to, deliberate, because that is what built the prosecution's whole case was deliberation. And so he basically says, well, in your report, didn't you document that Mr. Godejohn, the defendant, told you that Gypsy Blanchard told her mother organized fundraisers and solicited donations? And he says, yes. And his analysis, the defendant's analysis of that was that her mother did that to scam people and make them feel bad because she couldn't walk. Yes. Inaccurate perception? Well, I think that's what Gypsy told him. And so they said, so he learned from Miss Blanchard that she could walk about 1 year after they began their online relationship, correct? Yes. And he indicated he thought it was bizarre that her mother would not allow her to walk in public, correct? Yes. Again, an accurate perception, correct? Yes. It is bizarre. The best of your knowledge, Gypsy Blanchard was imprisoned by her mother, wasn't she? Yes. And she needed someone to liberate her from that in reality, correct? Yes. It's your view that Gypsy was the dominant person in this relationship. Isn't that correct? Absolutely. There's evidence to the contrary to that, though, isn't there? What are you speaking? And then he answers, so Patterson goes on and says, you documented that Mr. Godejohn told you that they argued about matters from time to time online, correct? They did. And the thing he identified them arguing about was Gypsy not being online at scheduled times, correct? Yes. Approximately 2 years into the relationship, he told you that Gypsy told him her mother had cancer and only had a few months to live and they should relieve her suffering, correct? Yes. And he told you it made him feel more convinced he was doing it, killing her for a just cause, correct?
Oh, no. It's bad. Yeah.
So, I mean, it goes on. They talk about, a lot of the manipulation. So it's just kind of, they talk about the fact that she convinced me. She made me feel more convinced I was actually doing it. She convinced me.
Okay, so in the offer of proof, continuing on, we've basically gone through a couple of things. And the last thing that I really want to discuss before we move on, and the rest of the whole burden of proof will be in our Patreon account. But the last part here really pertains to his deliberation, which, like I said, was the thing that the prosecution really built their case on. Which is the criteria for whether it was first degree or second degree murder. And so this is Patterson, so our prosecuting attorney, asking the expert that we've been interviewing. So this is all the same expert. And basically he's talking about the deliberation. So he says, did Nicholas Godejohn deliberate before killing Clauddinnea Blanchard? And Dr. Frank's answer is there was deliberation within the parameters of his mental illness that was skewed by his mental illness. And Patterson says, but he did in fact deliberate within the confines of his autism spectrum disorder. Yes. As anyone with spectrum disorder 2 would have to do, right? And he says, I'm sorry, I don't understand the follow-up question. So basically goes on to say, so anyone with, autism spectrum disorder can deliberate, but it would be within the confines of that diagnosis. And so he says, yes. So then he goes on to ask, the defendant knew he was killing Clauddinnea Blanchard, didn't he? And the guy answers again, within the confines of his autism spectrum disorder. And then Patterson, again, he planned to do it, didn't he? And the doctor answers, there's some question as to how much planning he actually orchestrated and how much he was following the directives of Miss Blanchard. I'm not sure how much Nicholas actually planned this himself. I think he was mostly following directions. And then Patterson comes back and he says he discussed it with her over the period of at least a year, correct? And Dr. Franks answers, give or take, the matter was discussed for a considerable amount of time. I don't know if it was a year, but certainly over 6 months. So then he goes on to ask, did he have any type of psychosis? And he tells him no. Were there any types of delusions? No. And basically in all of this, eventually he gets the expert to admit that he didn't even actually read any of the text messages between them before evaluating or after evaluating Nick and Gypsy. He did not view the police reports. He only watched the interrogation video and spoke to Nicholas. So some expert witness he was supposed to be. It's really clear in all of this that this expert had really no idea of any of it. Like he's supposed to have done all of that, and Patterson pretty much calls him out on it really big in this offer of proof. And of course, the defense attorneys, they object because it's a pre-trial hearing instead of during the trial is when that they're saying that this should be objected to, but they were literally 6 months past their due date of being able to present expert witnesses when they offered this guy up. So they were really way past what they were supposed to have been able.
Don't go anywhere. The Good Wives will be right back. Every great podcast needs a great website. Currently, our mother company, Mad Ginger Entertainment, is building their website using Bluehost. Bluehost is one of the best and most affordable web hosting platforms available. Plans start as low as $2.95 a month, and you can even integrate it with WordPress. So if you need your own website or affordable web hosting, grab our discount link in the description and get your podcast a bigger presence online at low costs.
Okay, so in the offer of proof, continuing on, we've basically gone through a couple of things. And the last thing that I really want to discuss before we move on, and the rest of the whole burden of proof will be in our Patreon account. But the last part here really pertains to his deliberation, which, like I said, was the thing that the prosecution really built their case on. Which is the criteria for whether it was first degree or second degree murder. And so this is Patterson, so our prosecuting attorney, asking the expert that we've been interviewing. So this is all the same expert. And basically he's talking about the deliberation. So he says, did Nicholas go to John deliberate before killing Clauddinnea Blanchard? And Dr. Franks answers, there was deliberation within the parameters of his mental illness that was skewed by his mental illness. And Patterson says, but he did in fact deliberate within the confines of his autism spectrum disorder. Yes. As anyone with spectrum disorder 2 would have to do, right? And he says, I'm sorry, I don't understand the follow-up question. So basically goes on to say, so anyone with, autism spectrum disorder can deliberate, but it would be within the confines of that diagnosis. And so he says yes. So then he goes on to ask, the defendant knew he was killing Clauddinnea Blanchard, didn't he? And the guy answers again, within the confines of his autism spectrum disorder. And then Patterson, again, he planned to do it, didn't he? And the doctor answers, there's some question as to how much planning he actually orchestrated and how much he was following the directives of Miss Blanchard. I'm not sure how much Nicholas actually planned this himself. I think he was mostly following directions. And then Patterson comes back and he says he discussed it with her over the period of at least a year, correct? And Dr. Franks answers, give or take, the matter was discussed for a considerable amount of time. I don't know if it was a year, but certainly over 6 months. So then he goes on to ask, did he have any type of psychosis? And he tells him no. Were there any types of delusions? No. And basically in all of this, eventually he gets the expert to admit that he didn't even actually read any of the text messages between them before evaluating or after evaluating Nick and Gypsy. He did not view the police reports. He only watched the interrogation video and spoke to Nicholas. So some expert witness he was supposed to be. It's really clear in all of this that this expert had really no idea of any of it. Like he's supposed to have done all of that, and Patterson pretty much calls him out on it really big in this offer of proof. And of course, the defense attorneys, they object because it's a pre-trial hearing instead of during the trial is when that they're saying that this should be objected to, but they were literally 6 months past their due date of being able to present expert witnesses when they offered this guy up. So they were really way past what they were supposed to have been able to get. The amount of time, like way past the amount of time that they should have had been able to give this expert witness. But that's because that wasn't their original defense.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is clearly, oh man, like this, when I read this, I had heard about it and I hadn't really seen it. And I had heard other people discuss what it was and what it wasn't. And I really didn't understand because it was like, I don't know what you're talking about because voir dire is not what you're describing. And what happened was that's one of the reasons why I didn't know that this was the document they were referencing. And, people just kept saying, well, it's in the voir dire, it's in the voir dire. I'm like, what are you even talking about? That's not even remotely. But because the very first page of this says something about I need to ask some voir dire questions, people began calling it the voir dire. And I'm like, that's not this. This is the offer of proof for whether or not this expert can even be used. And truthfully, he shouldn't have been for many different reasons. But I mean, I guess it doesn't matter because he didn't help. So they definitely chose the wrong expert, the defense did. I mean, hands down.
100%. There are so many other people that could have been better for Nick's case.
Absolutely.
Than presenting this man. Mm-mm. And then it being already late.
Right.
Like the comparison of how Gypsy's attorney worked for her and how Nick's attorney didn't work for him.
Oh yeah. Like it does, but it also shows that obviously they were going with something else and something changed their mind. And I'd really love to know what that was.
Right, were they trying to say that maybe he was the coercion?
I don't know if they were going to go for an insanity plea at some point. I mean, I just really don't know. Like, because obviously they changed it late in the game and we don't have all of the other, I mean, I have some pretrial motions, but they don't give any indication as to what they were really doing because a lot of that stuff for his trial is still sealed,
Right, and working with his appeal. I mean, maybe his attorneys and his family were trying to work with him to get him to plead guilty, so that way he could take a lesser sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it was getting to the point, and that's why it was so late in the game that
Right.
they realized that Nick wasn't going to do it, and they had to do something.
Right.
But it's, again, they really should have worked much harder with Nick on trying to get him to plead.
Mm-hmm.
He was not going to win anywhere in a trial.
No, I think I do think he thought that if nothing else, he would get second degree. But I mean, Patterson just did a great job of fucking hammering home deliberation. I mean, I don't think there wasn't a sentence in the 4 days that didn't include deliberation in it.
Right.
You know, I mean, that was, he just nailed that on and on and on. And even with them saying, you know, oh, well, Gypsy, it was Gypsy's decision. It was Gypsy's whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He still deliberated, and he's the one who killed her ultimately. So, I mean,
I think that was great. I think I agree with him 100%. I understand his processing may be different, but going by what he said in the Oxygen special,
right?
He deliberated.
Oh,
he deliberated.
Absolutely.
You can't.
No, and even a 7-year-old can deliberate. Like, do I want Cocoa Puffs or do I want Fruity Pebbles? So, I mean, there is still, even if
he was very clear. Like, this is what he says in the Oxygen special. The very second I put my foot down, I had one of those moments that you might only have once in your lifetime. It was an angel and the devil. First, the angel spoke. It actually said, take her and run. And then you had the other part of me, that darn devil. What he ended up telling me was, this bitch is dead. I got so darn enraged that something inside of me clicked. Unfortunately, that part of me wanted to come out for a very long time, and the very first opportunity it got, it didn't waste any time. That dark shadow part of me that really is triggered by anger, once that anger clicks, I see red. To me, that sounds like someone who says, look, I knew there was a good choice, there was a bad choice, I was mad, and when I get mad, I snap, and I just do what I do, and that's it. And I was mad, and I said, this bitch is dead.
Yep.
100%.
I don't know how he got to that in his head before he explained that, but however he got to it, that was a clear deliberation that he knew what was right and what was wrong. He could have taken her and he could have run with her, and nobody had to die.
Yes. Yes.
And to me, in terms of deliberation, it reminds me of that case in Florida where the mom, I think she's still in jail right now, for allegedly killing her daughter, and her 5-year-old son took the stand for the prosecution.
Yeah.
Saying that, yep, mommy chunked her head underwater.
Yeah.
Yep. And she's like, and like I've watched, I think it's a 2020 episode on that a few times, because I still don't believe that she did it. I don't believe she was a good mom, but I don't believe she did it. Versus the other Florida case that I'm sure we're going to cover later. I'm 100% sure we are. Casey Anthony.
Oh, absolutely. We're definitely.
She did it. No one's changing my mind on that.
Oh,
I can't believe that jury got her off.
Well, no. Well, that I've talked about this a million times, and that was an error on the prosecuting attorney being overzealous. He should have gone for second degree. And that is definitely, see, this is the difference. In these two cases, this is exactly how the justice system worked in both cases. In Nick's case, deliberation was clear. I mean, clear. There was no question. It was no chance for it not to go first degree. It was very evident. And he sunk himself over and over again. He did that interview, which even he talked about the devil and the angel in that one too. I mean, he clearly, there was deliberation beyond belief. In Casey Anthony, the problem is there wasn't enough evidence for first degree. And
too much speculation.
Went ahead and thought he could get it based on emotions, and he couldn't because there wasn't enough evidence. And because he didn't give the jury the option to choose that lesser charge of second degree, that's how she got off. I believe if he had given them the chance of a second degree, she would have gone to jail.
Oh yeah, there have been the jury members have said if it was an option, we would have found her guilty of second degree because there just wasn't enough evidence. Because the prosecutor already said that he was seeking the death penalty. Yeah. And they're like, we don't have enough proof for it to be death penalty.
No, there definitely was enough proof for there to be that she did something.
A murder charge.
Yes, a definite murder charge, because even second degree could have just been the cover up, you know, like literally if her dad killed her or the boyfriend killed her or whatever, she definitely could have been second degree based on the fact that she participated in covering it up and all of that, you know, but the fact that he didn't have enough for first degree, that he didn't have deliberation and he didn't have a smoking gun and he didn't have, like, he just didn't have enough, and he went ahead and went for it. And I bet you that prosecutor kicks himself every day for that.
I hope he does. And like, I know that
talking about 1.5 new babies.
I couldn't believe that. I'm like, and she's like followed around. I'm pretty sure she, for a period of time, was living at her attorney's house, reading those and watching that about her insane ass during the trial.
Yeah.
Like giving her defense attorney blowjobs and running around his office naked. I'm like, this crazy bitch.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother case, guys. So please stay tuned for when we get to that.
Okay, so
now we have to deal with these crazies.
Yeah. So that is, I guess that can be both.
He was not going to win anywhere in a trial.
No, I think I do think he thought that if nothing else, he would get second degree. But I mean, Patterson just did a great job of fucking hammering home deliberation. I mean, I don't think there wasn't a sentence in the 4 days that didn't include deliberation in it.
Right.
You know, I mean, that was, he just nailed that on and on and on. And even with them saying, you know, oh, well, Gypsy, it was Gypsy's decision. It was Gypsy's whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He still deliberated, and he's the one who killed her ultimately. So, I mean,
I think that was great. I think I agree with him 100%. I understand his processing may be different, but going by what he said in the Oxygen special,
right?
He deliberated.
Oh,
he deliberated.
Absolutely.
You can't. There's
no, and even a 7-year-old can deliberate. Like, do I want Cocoa Puffs or do I want Fruity Pebbles? So I mean, there is still, even if
he was very clear, like, this is what he says in the Oxygen special. The very second I put my foot down, I had one of those moments that you might only have once in your lifetime. It was an angel and the devil. First the angel spoke. It actually said, take her and run. And then you had the other part of me, that darn devil. What he ended up telling me was, this bitch is dead. I got so darn enraged that something inside of me clicked. Unfortunately, that part of me wanted to come out for a very long time, and the very first opportunity it got, it didn't waste any time. That dark shadow part of me that really is triggered by anger, once that anger clicks, I see red. To me, that sounds like someone who says, look, I knew there was a good choice, there was a bad choice, I was mad, and when I get mad, I snap, and I just do what I do, and that's it. And I was mad, and I said, this bitch is dead.
Yep.
Yep. 100%.
I don't know how he got to that in his head before he explained that, but however he got to it, that was a clear deliberation that he knew what was right and what was wrong. He could have taken her and he could have run with her, and nobody had to die.
Yes. Yes.
And to me, in terms of deliberation, it reminds me of that case in Florida where the mom, I think she's still in jail right now, for allegedly killing her daughter, and her 5-year-old son took the stand for the prosecution.
Yeah.
Saying that, yep, mommy chunked her head underwater.
Yeah.
Yep. And she's like, and like I've watched, I think it's a 2020 episode on that a few times, because I still don't believe that she did it. I don't believe she was a good mom, but I don't believe she did it. Versus the other Florida case that I'm sure we're going to cover later. I'm 100% sure we are. Casey Anthony.
Oh, absolutely. We're definitely.
She did it.
No
one's changing my mind on that.
Oh,
I can't
God,
believe
no.
that jury got her off.
Well, no. Well, that I've talked about this a million times, and that was an error on the prosecuting attorney being overzealous. He should have gone for second degree, and that is definitely. See, this is the difference in these two cases. This is exactly how the justice system worked in both cases. In Nick's case, deliberation was clear. I mean, clear. There was no question. It was no chance for it not to go first degree. It was very evident. And he sunk himself over and over again. He did that interview, which he talked about the devil and the angel in that one too. I mean, there was deliberation beyond belief. In Casey Anthony, the problem is there wasn't enough evidence for first degree. And
too much speculation.
Went ahead and thought he could get it based on emotions, and he couldn't because there wasn't enough evidence. And because he didn't give the jury the option to choose that lesser charge of second degree, that's how she got off. I believe that if he had given them the chance of a second degree, she would have gone to jail.
Oh yeah, there have been the jury members have said if it was an option, we would have found her guilty of second degree because there wasn't enough evidence. Because the prosecutor already said that he was seeking the death penalty. Yeah. And they're like, we don't have enough proof for it to be death penalty.
No, there definitely was enough proof for there to be that she did something.
A murder charge.
Yes, a definite murder charge, because even second degree could have just been the cover up, like literally if her dad killed her or the boyfriend killed her or whatever, she definitely could have been second degree based on the fact that she participated in covering it up and all of that, but the fact that he didn't have enough for first degree, that he didn't have deliberation and he didn't have a smoking gun and he just didn't have enough, and he went ahead and went for it. And I bet you that prosecutor kicks himself every day for that.
I hope he does. And
I know that talking about wanting to have new babies.
I couldn't believe that. I'm like, and she's like followed around it. I'm pretty sure she, for a period of time, was living at her attorney's house, reading those and watching that about her insane ass during the trial.
Yeah.
Like giving her defense attorney blowjobs and running around his office naked. I'm like, this crazy bitch.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother case, guys. So please stay tuned for when we get to that.
Thanks so much for tuning in and dishing true crime with the Good Wives.
Don't forget to join our Patreon member club to get the full recipe shared tonight, inside documents and pictures from the case, bonus mini podcast episodes, live YouTube discussion, and an exclusive invitation to our discussion group on Facebook, and get some amazing Good Wives merch.
Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at True Crime Wives. And for more inside information, check us out on YouTube at Murder by Design, where we're currently talking about a few different true crime cases, from bullying murders to serial killers. We dish it all.
Have a good one from the Good Wives, serving up true crime, one dish at a time.